Iftar Drive on Salam Media.
The time is just gone 4:25 p.m. and we're moving on, taking a look at Hamas. And this is a book that has been written by Dr. Daud Abdullah, who is a British academic and director of Middle East Monitor. And the book is called Engaging the World, the Making of Hamas's Foreign Policy. Dr. Daud Abdullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa barakatuh. Can you hear me?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Yes, we trust and hope that you're having a wonderful Ramadan, inshallah, Dr. Abdullah. Now, let's talk about this book, Engaging the World, the Making of Hamas's Foreign Policy. And obviously, I think when we're talking about foreign policy, this is important because when one looks at Palestine, when one looks at the recognition of the Palestinians, and which part of Palestine do you recognize? Which organization do you recognize? Do you recognize the Palestinian Authority? Do you recognize Hamas? And that is why foreign policy for Hamas is so critical.
Indeed, but it's well beyond a sort of partisan approach, if I may say, in the sense that first of all, it looks at Palestine in its entirety, not in terms of the West Bank and Gaza, but mandate Palestine. As you know, this is the strategic objective of Hamas as a liberation movement. It seeks to liberate all the lands that were occupied by the Zionist settler colonial project. So that is its scope, that is its strategic objective. In terms of the people, it is not just confined to those in the West Bank and Gaza, but it includes those in the diaspora as well as those in the 1948 territories, which is referred to as Israel. So that is it. That is its approach, its point of reference towards taking the Palestinian narrative to the international community.
Yes, I think what is important for what you're saying, Dr. Abdullah, is in terms of recognition of Palestine as a sovereign state. And I think this is, should be the starting point, because at the end of the day, one cannot be selective as far as Palestine is concerned. The struggle is for Palestine. The struggle is for the whole of Palestine, and it's the whole of Palestine that has been impacted and affected by the Zionist occupation.
Yes, it's a colonial project. The Palestinian experience is not different from that of our people in Africa and the Americas and the Caribbean and Asia. The Europeans came and they took the land and the resources and they dominated these territories for decades, enriching themselves. The Palestinians, they suffered the same historic fate. Only to difference perhaps is the fact that 3/4 of the Palestinian people were expelled from their land. You see, and hence the reason we have this large diaspora. But nevertheless, the ideal, the goal of liberating the land and exercising self-determination on that land and having independence, you see, and ownership of its resources and their political destiny. These are the objectives of all the movements in what we call the Palestinian national movement. That includes, that embraces Hamas and Fatah and Islamic Jihad and all the Palestinian political forces. This is the fundamental reason for being in existence. Of course, there have been differences. There have been changes and over the years, which is quite remarkable. But in the case of Hamas, it has not changed in any way its original objective and purpose, which is to liberate all of historic Palestine.
Yes. Now, just as far as your book is concerned, and if you can just take us through, some of the critical issues that obviously you want to highlight in the book, or the more important issues in terms of getting that message out against, obviously, this title, which is in terms of engaging the world and the foreign policy of Hamas.
Yes, as one would probably accept, in national liberation movements, because they seek to serve the cause of peoples who have been oppressed or colonized. They need to forge relationships and alliances, and they need to collaborate with international actors, whether they are state actors or non-state actors. And that is the essence of the foreign policy making. How to forge relationships, how to build understanding, how to gain recognition, you see, and to cooperate outside of the national environs. And this is what Hamas seeks to do. Now, when initially, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, much of its relations, international relations, were confined to the neighboring states, whether it's Iraq, to Syria, to the Gulf states, or to those in North Africa, and of course in Egypt. But as time went on, those relationships broadened to include countries in the Islamic world, in Asia, and further afield. Then later on, after 2006, when they won the elections and became responsible for the destiny of 2 million people in Gaza, then it had to broaden its relations, international relations, to include countries like South Africa, Malaysia, forge ties and understandings with Russia and China, and of course, seek to have a better understanding within the European theater. As you know, some countries had taken a position against Hamas as early as 1993. The United States proscribed them and declared them, designated Hamas as a terrorist organization. That affected its ability to relate with countries in the West generally. But it was not uniform. Some European countries did not, go along with the American and EU designation. I'm speaking specifically of non-EU European states like Switzerland, like Norway. They engage with Hamas, right on, and they're currently do in an open manner, as opposed to other European countries that prefer to do it covertly. So the book explores, how these relationships evolve over the years. The approach I adopted was to use defining moments in the history which affected the movement and allow it to forge or to develop these relationships. For example, the invasion of Kuwait in 1990. That was the first real diplomatic challenge that the movement faced. Because although you see many Palestinians in the territories, including Hamas supporters, supported Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait, Hamas's leadership in the political bureau recognized that what was done in Kuwait was illegal in international law. It should not have happened. That one state invades the sovereign territory of another state. So it condemned it. So that was, we saw that how this event brought Hamas onto the regional political stage. It became part of all the diplomatic efforts to persuade Saddam Hussein to withdraw. You see, so that was one historic moment that it took advantage of. Then, of course, the Oslo Accords and the Madrid process and the Oslo Accords, the events in the expulsion to Majid Zahud in 1992, that opened up opportunities for relationship with international actors, particularly in the media and civil society. Then we look at other issues. For example, and I'll stop here. When after the elections of 2006, President Putin said, well, these are the elected people. These are the elected representatives of the Palestinians. I want to meet them. So he invited them to Moscow, you see, and so to South Africa. The government in South Africa under President Mbeki, they also recognize Hamas as the legitimately elected representative of the Palestinian people, you know, at that time. So they invited Hamas to South Africa. So these historic moments, these historic events created opportunities. And the book examines how Hamas reacted to, how these events impacted on the movement and how it reacted to, you know, the opportunities that they created.
Well, certainly, in fact, sounds very, very interesting, and I'm sure there's a lot more that the book covers. And just quickly, Dr. Abdullah, the book is available for if people want to get hold of it.
The book is available from Memo Publishers in London at the moment. Our colleagues and comrades in South Africa at the Afro Middle East Center in Johannesburg, they are the publishers, and I'm sure they will be able to provide copies, you know, upon request there in South Africa. But the main distributor at the moment is Memo Publishers in London.
Well, inshallah, we hope all goes well, Dr. Abdullah. And as always, we thank you. We say shukran, jazakallah to you for your time with us here on the Iftar Drive. And all the best to you, inshallah, and for the rest of Ramadan as well.
Barakallah. And to you also.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum.
The time brings us 4:37 p.m. and that was Dr. Daud Abdullah joining us this afternoon. And next up, it is season 2, where we pay tribute to Muslim broadcasters, journalists, and this afternoon we will be paying tribute to Nabila Sheikh.